Hey everyone, Harry here to talk a little bit reluctantly about the circus, the three-ring circus, the tented three-ring Barnum and Bailey circus that is the hearing down in Fulton County, now in its second day, to determine whether there are grounds to disqualify DA Fani Willis from prosecuting the case against Trump and many others. Let me just start with what I've said from the beginning and all through the hearing. You know, I've to date been impressed with Scott McAfee, the judge there. He seems level-headed, run a pretty good courtroom. But from the time he came out and used the word evidentiary, I've been queasy and a little perplexed what the hell he's got in mind. So a defendant, a not very reliable defendant, in fact, a sort of notorious kind of fabulist defendant, made these allegations about an affair between Willis and Nathan Wade, the lead prosecutor. And, they were scandalous, and they forced basically the two of them to admit they'd had an affair, so they embarrassed her. But the only possible relevance to the case would be if they could show some kind of financial conflict of interest, such that basically, the way this comes up is if you have a contingency arrangement, which nobody ever does, to try to prosecute a case so that, the bigger sentence you get from the defendant, the more money you make. You can see how that would be really at cross purposes with justice and due process. But at a minimum, you need to have some kind of financial conflict of interest, or McAfee says an appearance of one. Why this sort of screed that Roman filed was sufficient to drive the stake in the ground and start the circus going is really beyond me, and it really has not been a good look for McAfee, for anybody in the courtroom. But he, basically he said on Monday to everyone's, to my alarm anyway, it might be possible that Willis has to be disqualified from the case, and he's let this whole thing go on. Really, what the right thing to do would be to have forced Roman, the defendant who's making the claim, to come forward with something tangible and an argument, facts that, if correct, would show a case for disqualifying her, and then maybe he can prove these facts. Instead, they went into, as the world turns, and whether, when they first kissed and when they first met, and all kinds of salacious details that have zero to do with a financial conflict of interest. It was sort of 8 steps removed from the real thing they were getting at, which was pretty tenuous. And to cut to the chase on it, I don't think they advanced an inch, which is somehow a financial conflict of interest. Why? The theory goes something like, Willis hires Wade, pays him lots of money. Wade takes her on vacations, pays for the champagne. Therefore, it's all her using good public money to somehow, feather her own nest. Really weak, really tenuous, and really speculative. No proof of it at all. But we had this really tawdry day in McAfee's courtroom where they first, it looked as if maybe they'd never even be able to get to first base. The law partner of Wade, who supposedly talked about the affair, immediately got up and said, "This is attorney-client privilege." A little tenuous, but I have orders from the bar not to talk, and if you order me to, we have to go to the Georgia Supreme Court. Then another witness was hesitant, but McAfee permitted a former friend of Willis to get up there and say, "I knew Willis during this time, and she was having an affair with Wade, and they were hugging and kissing and such." Now, the witness not the greatest witness. She was fired for some kind of misconduct that she was obviously defensive about. She's had a clear falling out with Fani Willis, who used to be a friend. So, but she may have a reason to try to. She hadn't talked to her since. May have a reason to say bad stuff about her. There was all kinds of muddy evidentiary rulings where basically the woman was testifying to hearsay. She'd heard from Willis that blank, that's hearsay, but he let it in, and zero about any kind of financial conflict of interest. But at that point, we were off and running. So they call Wade. Wade is on the stand for a few hours. The two things I'd say: he was very composed and good testimonial qualities, didn't let himself get angry, didn't get his dander up, yes ma'am, no ma'am, etc. And he had thought it through carefully, and he didn't give an inch on. He was really pushed on the interrogatories, which are questions you answer under oath in his divorce case. And he said, he would not allow an inch of having been dishonest on them. For example, he had answered he'd never had an affair in the divorce while married to his wife. And his response to that was that since 2015, when the wife had had an affair, the marriage was irretrievably broken, but they'd stayed together for the children until the minute the children left. And, but so that wasn't an affair. So he can say with honestly, no affair while he's married, stuff like that. But mainly he's thought it through, is composed, a lot of stuff about money, but nothing really hits home. Okay. And then the dramatic centerpiece of the hearing, they call Fani Willis. And, this was the thing when he said evidentiary hearing, McAfee, like, really? They're like going to call Fani Willis, the DA, and basically, ask her, about Wade's underwear. What is the, it's so like tawdry is the word I kept coming back to. Anyway, surprise, maybe not such a surprise. By all accounts, Willis hit it out of the park. So Wade was very composed and poised. Willis a little less. She showed some flashes of anger and defiance and like, basically, who are you to be questioning me about my personal life? And, explaining that she does, in fact, always carry a lot of cash around. That's what her dad, taught her about going on dates. You can't rely on men. A man is not a plan. So she had, besides a kind of defiance, a certain winning sassiness that really seemed to captivate people. So a lot of them were saying, man, has this backfired on Trump because she's going to be so likable? It's not a good look. The whole thing has never been a good look to have had an affair with someone who you've hired to try the case. And, it is not hornbook playbook behavior. She shouldn't have done it. It's a big case, etc. But the question always is, maybe that's some ethics bar thing. Maybe the voters vote her out. But what the hell does it have to do with the case? And they never really got within a country mile of showing a financial conflict of interest. She hung tough on the cash thing, and then just in general, sort of came out of it a folk hero. No, not the kind of folk hero you think of as a prosecutor, which is more starchy, etc. But, maybe a modern day 2024 folk hero. There were testimonials in the press, one in particular. I never thought much of her, but now I really like her. She's no bullshit, clear-eyed, a woman of integrity and spirit, a woman of integrity and spirit. So in that sense, she goes up there and kind of wins the day. Now, the day though, well, first of all, we're now on the defense, on this, I'm sorry, this is how screwed up it is. On the state's case explaining why there's no conflict. First witness is actually a guy who she first tried to hire for Wade's position. and in fact, like a former governor who turned her down. So puts the lie to, just hired him again. Hired him. What the conflict would have to be? Hired him because he's her lover? No. Hired him and somehow to like fleece the public of, to launder money through him and get some good desserts. It's really absurd. But that would be the notion of it. By the way, there's a whole huge sideshow of did they start dating before she hires him or not, and that could have tangential effects. But it's again hard to see pivotal on, and I'm just going to set it to the side for now. And then the aforementioned partner of Wade, who said yesterday when Roman called him, I'm not talking about this, and it's attorney-client privilege. Obviously, he's told people, in indiscreet kind of, just sort of bar talk or whatever that they had this affair, and he's going to resist strenuously saying anything about it. And that'll be it. So, now we have this just huge mess. What does McAfee do with it? I don't think they've come anywhere close to showing a financial conflict of interest. And in fact, that fact that they haven't really to me means he should never have been going down this crazy road. And I would be really stunned from what seems to be the record here if he were to somehow hold that she has to be, and that's the question. It's not about Wade, hold that she has to be disqualified. Now, judges have a lot of discretion, and in particular, when you're talking about recusal, you can always rely on the good old appearance of a conflict. There may not be a conflict, but there is I don't see that remotely here even, and plus there is this aspect that she, so acquitted herself and was so popular. He's a guy running for the bench. I think it would be precarious to bounce her, but there's just no legal basis. And there was no legal basis to have the hearing. So I think the way it winds up is, the motion is denied. Maybe Willis is kind of given more personality and spirit and sense of integrity in the public's eyes. That would be a good thing for her. She may wind up bouncing Wade, right, on her own. That may be her sort of sacrifice to the scandal, as it were. And I could see that happening, but not being ordered by McAfee. But on the other hand, now that we've been through this whole tawdry spectacle, there's, grist for the mill if you're a miller who works for the Trumps. So we've got good old Jim Jordan in Washington wanting to subpoena her about how federal funds were used. And they had set up an investigative legislative body to look into it. So people can try to keep it alive. But now it looks like it'll be, what's left to say? All the details are out unless they're going to try to call her a liar. And, she may even have scored points by the way she said, yes, I had an affair. I'm a, woman who doesn't rely on men financially. I'm a professional, et cetera, and attacks on her might just backfire. That would be the reason it would maybe dry up and go away. But it is out there for them to kind of mess with. Let me just say, if McAfee, surprisingly, astonishingly to me, recuses her, no prospect of a trial, I'd say, in 2024. And the prospect is already pretty remote. And if there is a trial, one thing that the hearing has taught us, it will be ponderous and long because, we have all these defendants and McAfee lets people question. And so even this little thing, went from lawyer to lawyer to lawyer, et cetera. It's going to be, quite an extended and ponderous affair. Okay, so tawdry spectacle in Georgia, but I don't think the lights will go out. I think he'll keep her there, and we'll see if there's any kind of political fallout or whether her bravado performance on the stand actually beats that back as well. Talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.